welcome to K4 Mobility's July 2022 webinar. We'll cover KaaS version 6.4. It's a new update packed with a lot of new features that most customers will definitely want to take advantage of. So today we have two speakers, myself, Justin Smith, the Director of Solutions Engineering, and Brian Lauer, the CTO. The QA contributors will be Jared Simon and Mark Blosh, as well as Robert Blackman. And I'll hand it over to Brian here to go over the software vision in just a moment. But before we do that, I'll just quickly go over the agenda. So we'll do a company overview, an overview of KaaS. Then we'll touch on flexible interfaces and high-cost links, cover VSAT and cellular controller updates, dual modem support on the OneBox, a new internet dashboard and my account page updates, as well as captive portal, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. So without further ado, Brian, take it away.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Brian Lauer, Chief Technology Officer of K4. I think if you go to the next chart, please. Okay, so what is K4 trying to do here? K4 Edge as a service is our focus, and we are delivering this via three primary methods. We have Edge Intelligence with our K4 Edge OS. We have a cloud service as well that allows for global orchestration and management of the systems. And then we have an application that provides ease of management in any location in the environment. But our goal in general is to have the Edge Intelligence that provides services such as monitoring, alerting, advanced LAN, SDWAN, and QoS at your remote location. So it can provide LAN management to WAN management, alerting and capabilities with high security, with a diverse set of wireless or wired internet links that is reliably and easily configurable and monitored. The cloud aspects, which are critical for Catalyst as a service or K4 Edge as a service, provides global orchestration, provides an alert board like a NOC-like board function, provides mapping and a tracker so you know where all your systems are at and located, how they're performing, provides group actions on software and configuration management, provides reporting and accounting management, usage of the system, performance, etc. And lastly, with the app, if you're away from your computer, or if based on the role you play in managing these systems, the app provides great details on how a system or a group of systems are performing at the touch of your hand. So it makes it very easy to manage these systems and a lot of flexibility depending on how you deploy and manage. All of this as well comes with K4's IAM, which is integrated access management, which allows for role-based access to the systems. So you can have limited or full access to systems depending on the role of the user, and that's all provided with the service. I'd say maybe one more point. The software we have here, the Edge OS, runs on various platform types. So we run the software on server systems like the Edge server, but also on integrated wireless systems such as the Edge One or the OneBox, which has modem systems in it as well. And lastly, it runs on the OneDome, which is an advanced 5G, now a 5G antenna system that provides very far offshore reach and performance. All run the common Edge OS and run the common KaaS service. So you can manage them consistently across the platforms, such as the Edge server, all the way to the OneDome, have the same management interface, the same management profiles, etc. So the consistency in management is key for our services. Next chart.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
All right. So now that Brian has gone over kind of what the KaaS software is, now I'll go into some of the updates that we've packed into version 6.4, with the first being the flexible interface support. So prior to 6.4, the K4 equipment shipped with static interfaces. For example, our Edge Server 2 has 6 built-in Ethernet ports and 2 add-on ports via USB to Ethernet. These ports were fixed with one port allocation, with one port allocated to LAN and the other ports allocated to either WAN or management. Okay? So if you need to plug in WAN links, right, we need to plug in the hard line or shore into WAN 1, LTE into WAN 2, VSAT into WAN 3, and then finally LAN systems would connect into the LAN port. Okay? So our latest 6.4 code gives users more flexibility by allowing them to choose what role each interface will play. So now if you need 3 LAN interfaces and 3 WAN interfaces, you can easily configure this in the UI. Or if you need more WAN interfaces than the hardware will support, you can add on a WAN switch and connect as many WAN interfaces as you need. So let's say if you have 7 WAN interfaces, you can connect in a 7-port switch or 8-port switch, connect the multiple LTE, multiple VSAT connections in, and then trunk that connection to the K4 Edge system and create those interfaces on the K4 Edge platform. So when you add new interfaces, other parts of the dashboard are updated to reflect the new interfaces. Any disabled interfaces will be removed to unclutter the dashboard. So to configure a new or existing interface, you'll need to open the configuration wizard, which is accessed by the 3 little dots on the pull-down menu on the top right. So you'll need to select the interface name after you click on the interfaces tab, which has been renamed from WAN. So you'll need to select the interface name. You'll need to select the interface name. You'll need to add the WAN interface type. You'll need to give it an alias, and then you'll also need to give it a VLAN ID. So all of these parameters will allow you to add a new interface, which is fairly easy to do, and then you'll go ahead and save that configuration. Correction here. So after you add new interfaces, you'll typically want to configure monitoring and probing. So we've made some updates to our probe profiles, which we've called a high-cost link support. So it's a new probe file that's supported within our probing. It's all in the interface configuration section. So a high-cost probe profile, it works with any WAN link. So when you configure the probe profile for high cost, it will consider the link up as long as you have connectivity. So as long as the Ethernet link is plugged in and it's active, we will consider that link as up. We will not send any K4 data over that link. We won't send any probes or allow any speed tests. So this will help keep costs down for fleet broadband type links or any links that will incur costs based on data sent over that link. We've also added a new interface type, just like LAN or WAN, Wi-Fi. or LTE, we've added a new type of fleet broadband. This will automatically set the profile to high cost and kind of hard coded. So if you create a new interface and then assign it the fleet broadband type, you won't be able to run any probes over it or speed tests or any operational data, but the normal data plane traffic will be able to be sent over this link. So in addition to the high cost link support, we've added some updates to our VSAT controller, and now we can support what we're calling the third-party VSAT controller. So if you're not familiar with the VSAT controller from K4, typically we will deploy a K4 Edge system that can manage VSAT. So we'll deploy a managed switch, we'll deploy an IQ200 and an ACU and antenna. So we have intelligence built into the K4 Edge platform that will be able to pull the data from the IQ200 modem or the X7 modem from iDirect. Okay? And then we pull in that data into our dashboard. So we pull in things like the beam and satellites, the RF performance, the RX and TX status from the modem. All that data is pulled into the UI. So you have one dashboard to log in to get that data. So previously, this information was only supported when there was a K4 supplied VSAT modem and VSAT service. Now you can configure the same information, even though it's provided by a third party. So if you had an agreement with SCS or any of the other satellite operators and use an IQ200 modem, when you configure a new interface, such as a VSAT management interface, you can configure the VSAT management IP, you can give it a name. You can also provide the modem credentials, the username and password to log into the modem, as well as the ACU IP address, which are all of the things that we need to be able to pull in the data from that modem into the UI. So we're just giving you more options that will allow you to take advantage of the K4 service, even if we are not providing the VSAT services. So along the same line as the VSAT controller updates, we've also made updates to our cellular controller, which is now geo-aware. So most of the K4 products, like the Edge One or our One Dome, as well as our OneBox, all have LTE radios built into them. And so we have been collecting data from our system for a long time. We collect basically the cellular connectivity data, so we know what LTE carrier you're connecting on, what towers you're connecting on. We connect all your signal strength data. And we've been populating our systems on the back end for a long time. And so now we're starting to also collect the GPS data and marry that information together. Okay, so now we're doing some back-end correlation between your location and your LTE connectivity status. And so what we can do with that information now is basically automate the process of switching from one carrier to another based off previous connectivity history. So we know when you've had a great experience and when you've had not such a great experience, and we can use that information to determine when is the best time to switch and what carriers will work best in certain areas. So this is a major update to our cellular controller interface. And so now with the new version 6.4, all of our customers can take advantage of that intelligence, and which will improve the experience when using LTE and cellular. In addition to the cellular and VSAT controller updates. We've also added support for dual modems on our OneBox. So our OneBox is a 2RU platform that has a VSAT modem built in. It has our VoIP adapter built in, as well as the LTE radios. Okay. So dual modem we released earlier this year in Q1. And so we use two iDirect modems to drive a single ACU and an antenna. And so we have some built-in intelligence into the platform to say, what satellite operator is the best operator to be on at that moment. And if we experience any sort of blockage or any sort of outage on one carrier, we can quickly switch providers in our software and provide it through our beam switch interface. And then we can switch to the other modem fairly quickly, which will bring up the service on a new operator. Okay. So this helps minimize the blockage and outage time. So we can generally switch, within 5 minutes or so. So that's what, the dual modem platform is as a whole. But so now our OneBox solution, we've taken all of those components, those external components, and we've retrofitted them into the OneBox, which we're calling the OneBox version 3. So we have a second modem in there. We now have a switch. We have RF splitters, all within the OneBox chassis. And so we have a single RF output for TX and RX to the ACU. And so the OneBox can take advantage of all of the same benefits as using external modems, but now all of those components are internal, which we can take advantage of now. Okay, so now that we've gone over the dual modem design in the OneBox, we've made some UI updates. So we've redesigned our internet dashboard and my account pages. Okay. So starting with the internet dashboard, on the top left, we can see a basic table of each interface and their current status. We can also see the operator usage and average speed as well. Within the Actions button, you can go to the interface configuration page and real-time and performance dashboards, which you'll need if you're doing any sort of troubleshooting. And then on the top right, we have the network usage level chart. Here you can see each interface and its usage level, right, as a percentage. And then just below that, we have the network usage, which you can see the LAN status and the number of active networks and how many devices are active. You also see the AP status as well, right under the network usage level. And then on the bottom right, we have the geolocation panel, which is populated when you have the GPS antenna attached. And so this is how we typically will get that geo-aware data as through that GPS antenna. Let's see, in the bottom center, we have the internet profile panel. Here you can see the different WAN profiles and the associated networks. You can also see the WAN interfaces and their priority order. So this is meant to give you a quick view of the WAN profile to access network association. So if you're doing any sort of troubleshooting, you can quickly see this information without having to dig further into the UI for it. So, on the bottom left, we have our last panel, which is My Plans. So here you can see the month-to-date usage for VSAT and LTE at the top of the panel. And then below, you can see the associated LTE and VSAT plans. Okay? So if you click on the arrow in the top right here, you'll be taken to the My Account page. which has also been updated. So on the My Account page, you can see the plans on the right and the usage trends on the left. So you can also select a different month by using this drop-down menu here on the top right. So here you can see the different LTE usage. And so you just get a good bird's eye view of the necessary information to associate with your plans and plan usage. So that wraps up pretty much our UI updates. And then finally here we have the captive portal update. Okay. So you've probably have used this captive portal if you've ever used the internet at like a Starbucks or a hotel and encountered any sort of login page before you were able to access the public internet. So that's what a captive portal is. Okay. Probably very familiar with that. So K4 has released the captive portal as well that works in a very similar manner. However, we've given vessel owners and operators the ability to manage it from the cloud by configuring different usage plans and policies that can be shared from vessel to vessel and across users. Okay. So in order to set up the captive portal, there is a process for that. So there's a cloud configuration component, and then there's a vessel configuration component. So in the cloud, we'll need to create usage plans, which has a name and a duration associated with it, as well as a data quota. So let's say if you want to set up a 5-day plan, a 7-day plan for 1 gig, 5 gig, or 10 gig, all of this is customizable. Okay, so you'll need to create that plan. You also need to create users with an email address, and then you'll need to assign that plan to that user. Okay, and then on the vessel, which has the K4 Edge software on it, we'll need to have a traffic policy created, which will match the plan name that was created in the cloud. And then we'll need to enable the captive access network on the vessel, which is basically an access VLAN, and then you will enable that option for captive access network. And then we need to associate that captive access network with the same traffic policy that was created earlier. So all of those components will allow the captive portal to work. So when you talk about the end user experience or the process that they will go through, end users will need to authenticate against an authentication server. So they'll send an authentication request, and then we'll get a response from that authentication server, which will send that response back to the Edge server. And then that user will be able to access that internet resource like Google or YouTube or Facebook or whatever it was they were trying to access. Okay, so a very similar experience to what end users would expect if you're accessing the public Wi-Fi. You don't need to set a password on if you have like a guest Wi-Fi network. You can leave that Wi-Fi network open because they will be presented with a login page before they can access the internet. So that is one enhancement. That's pretty nice. It's a very straightforward process. So now that we've gone over pretty much all of the new features of the 6.4 update, probably wondering how do I get this update? So upgrading to 6.4 is a pretty straightforward process. In the top right corner of the K4 Edge software, we have a little system information button. All you'll need to do is click that and click the download icon. Okay. And then on the software update page, you'll click the download button, which will download the software in the background. And once it's finished downloading, you'll need to just click to install it and it'll be installed, and the blocks will reboot, and then the appliance will come up on the new software version. So pretty straightforward and easy process. Works on all of the K4 hardware platforms, and version 6.4 is available today. So feel free to download it on your platform or hardware if you have the time to get it installed to take advantage of these features. So just to recap, we've done an overview of the KaaS platform. We've touched on flexible interfaces and high-cost links. We've covered VSAT and cellular controller updates, as well as the dual modem UI updates and tablet portal, as well as how to download the new 6.4 version of code. And so with that, we'll open it up for Q&A. Let's see if we have any questions in the chat here.
Hey Justin, so Robert Blackman here, Director of Tech Ops for K4. I do see a question that come in to say, you mentioned about the new interfaces and being able to VLAN WAN sources. Is there a limitation to the amount of VLANs you can add on a WAN interface?
Good question. I believe we do have a limit on WAN interfaces. I don't know the exact number. Brian, do you know what our upper limit is on WAN interfaces?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can configure, there's no like hard limit on the number of VLANs you can add to like a WAN port. So if you have a WAN port, you add 10 VLAN IDs to that WAN port, that's okay, or 20. But the number of WAN links we can balance upon, like do SD-WAN services on, is 12 is the limit for this release.
Thanks for that.
Yeah,
Good
thanks,
question.
Brian. Thanks, Justin. One other one, which is similar vein to that, is if you create multiple LAN ports, LAN trunk ports, can they be bonded or give aggregated bandwidth? So I guess being that they're gigabit Ethernet, I guess the question is, you know, if you created multiple trunk ports, could it sort of create a lag in?
Yeah, we don't officially support lagging today, but if you were to create, let's say, add a VLAN on 2 ports and call those LAN, you can plug in those interfaces into a switch and effectively increase your bandwidth in that way.
Yeah, I think to that point, you can have, if you have 2 LAN ports, let's say you have a common VLAN on each LAN port, they are bridged by default on our server. So to Justin's point, you could have, let's say, you could have a VLAN, a common one or different ones to the access networks, and it will consume the gigabit link for both in its entirety onto the server. So I think the only thing to be cautious of is if you bridge those VLANs on the switch, they are bridged on our server, you have a loop at that point. So you definitely would want STP or loop prevention on the switch. But it does, at some level, aggregate the throughput. It does.
Yeah, and I guess for us, the most common, to add to that, I guess the most common deployment we see for this is maybe somebody will create LAN interfaces. You know, maybe they'll be, certainly in a yachting or a leisure instance, there might be a dedicated LAN interface for the owner's business network, and then, you know, crew could be on a separate interface if need be, to give the full gigabit Ethernet availability. Yeah, but to that, like a common thing we see too is like you'll have an AVIT gigabit port, and then you'll have like an internet access port. And they'll both come into the server. They could have some common VLANs or completely unique VLANs. If they're common VLANs, they'll be bridged between the ports.
And if they're different VLANs, they're unique per port. But the bridging function comes in automatically to simplify management of the networks. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Justin, with Captive Portal, there's a question here that do we support a paywall?
Not officially yet. We are working on paywall options, which should be available in subsequent releases. Okay,
yeah, so to expand on that, so the current Captive Portal is essentially just username, password protected, correct?
That's correct. Just a username and password.
Yep, there's an admin piece. It's similar to guest access for corporate access, where you create an account and give it to the user. And then there's kind of a quota and traffic policies associated with that guest access. And so it just requires that configuration, which we have. So the subsequent releases, again, will be payment options and anonymous user access. Those are the two items we're working on.
Excellent, thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Last one I see here. So question, which I think is going to be quite common. You know, what support, if any, is there for third-party internet applications such as Starlink, OneWeb, you know, or a different supplied service that may come online in the future?
For Starlink in particular, we're integrating and providing integration and management page for Starlink with some additional optimizations to improve Starlink performance. Common issue with Starlink today is mobile drops, which they will resolve over time for sure. And secondly, is upstream performance is relatively poor to the downstream. So we have some technology we're integrating along with, you know, direct management of the system. And so this I would call like Starlink compliance or Starlink compatible compatibility or usability will be added here in the subsequent release. But currently we have many customers that use Starlink now with our system without issue.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And essentially, I think we mentioned this on other webinars. You know, we're sort of connection agnostic, if you like. You know, we can have customers bring in any WAN source. You know, as long as it has an Ethernet port, we can essentially bring that in and manage QoS, bandwidth rules, etc. So, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be any service, you know, currently existing through K4 or any sort of legacy VSAT service. It could be any future service which has Ethernet capability. Okay, I think that's it for the Q&As that come through the webinar. I'm not sure if there's anything else from any of the other contributors. So back to you, Justin.
All right. Thanks, Robert. So now that we've finished up Q&A section, feel free to reach out to our sales team if you have any particular questions on our hardware, or reach out to our support if you have any questions on software or need help with an install or anything like that. So with that, I think we can wrap up. So thank you.
Thank you.